Hello, storyboard artists out there. Look, you're working on your scene right now. Maybe you're on a TV show, maybe you're on a movie. You got your script pages right here and you're getting into good flow, but suddenly you hit a roadblock and you're not quite sure how to proceed. So here's a deep dive into the process that I actually use to unpack the pages and find a way to take what's written and actually make it stronger. Remember, your job as a visual storyteller is to actually take what's written and find a way to make it clearer, more emotional, funnier, whatever it is that's required in the storytelling. But at the end of the day, you want to take what's written and actually make it stronger. So this is a live demo I did in one of my storyboard classes recently from a sequence that I was working on during the pre-production of SpongeBob Search for SquarePants. And as a side note, this scene does not make the cut of the movie. They actually rewrote the movie, and this entire concept was out. This actually happens quite often. They rewrite to make the movies much better. So I hope you enjoy. Here we go. SpongeBob free falls towards Goo Sea. Krabs off camera. Help, help, someone save me. SpongeBob pulls out a telescope and sees a pirate ship. Mr. Krabs is tied up and walking the plank at sword point. The pirate holding his sword is Plankton. He pulls the ripcord of his backpack parachute. That's a little unclear. It's SpongeBob doing that. And because this is a dream sequence, this doesn't make any sense, but it's a dream. He pulls the ripcord of his backpack and a motorcycle pops out. SpongeBob hops on it mid free fall and peels out towards the pirate ship. So we're going to look at just this one part alone and figure out how to visualize this. Let's read this again. We're in the exterior of a rocket ship and it's flying upwards in space, 5,000 feet above the sea level. SpongeBob free falls towards the sea. We hear, help, someone save me. So are we beginning to create some visuals in our heads of how this might look? We have to have we have to have a rocket ship. We've got to find some way of him jumping out of a rocket ship. So that means there's got to be a door on the side of the rocket ship. We have to have him in a free fall, and we have to show him pulling out a telescope to see a pirate ship. And then we see Mr. Krabs is tied up and walking the plank at sword point. The pirate holding his sword is Plankton. SpongeBob pulls the ripcord of his backpack parachute. Instead of a parachute popping out, we have a motorcycle that pops out. And then somehow SpongeBob hops on in mid free fall. So it should be SpongeBob hops on the motorcycle in mid free fall and then peels out towards the pirate ship. So we have a couple of ideas happening here. We first have him in a free fall. We have a voiceover saying, help someone save me. Then we have him pulling out a telescope to see a pirate ship. So we're going from general to specific. We're first seeing a pirate ship, and then more clearly, we're going to see Mr. Krabs is tied up and walking the plank. And we're going to see that the pirate is actually Plankton. So let me ask you this, guys. This is the creative part. If we can see a pirate ship from roughly 5,000 feet up in the air, how the hell are we going to see tiny details like Mr. Krabs and Plankton? If we're looking through, actually, let's do this. Let's go to Photoshop so we can draw this out. This is the problem solving part that I want to tackle with you guys. So we got him pulling out a telescope, seeing a pirate ship. So when I visualize in my head what that can look like, and before even showing what SpongeBob looks like, I'm just going to do the cliche looking through a telescope. So we have a round circle, right? That's my circle right there. And then everything around it is going to be black. All right, so here's my telescope I'm looking through. And I'm going to do one small other thing just because you want to make that thing blurry. So I'll make a copy of it just so I don't lose anything, and I'll go Gaussian blur. So now I'm looking through my telescope. So if I see a pirate ship below, and this is the problem solving part, but then I also see Mr. Krabs is tied up on the plank, and I have a pirate holding a sword as Plankton. I know this already just from basic size relationships. If I do a pirate ship like this, I'll make it a little smaller for you guys. And you have a mast like this. That's my pirate ship, right? Huge. If I have a plank on this, and this is my plank right here, in proportion to the ship, it would not be very big. And Mr. Krabs would be like this big, right? And then I have Plankton who's about that big. And he is in a robot mechanized suit, but his robot is actually a miniature boat with legs. So that's how big it is. Now imagine this idea, but from a very super high elevation like this. How the hell am I going to see those details? This is the problem solving part. And if I'm looking straight down at the ocean, I have to put my grid like this. And this is actually what I discovered when I was drawing this. I can still remember that. Like, okay, here's my water, and here's my pirate ship. And I'm going to say it's this big. And I'm going to see a mast like this. And here's the back of the boat. So that's my boat right there, sailing on the seas. And here's my thing. And if I have my plank like that, how the hell am I going to see Mr. Krabs on that? But the script calls for it, right? So this is where we come into the problem solving part. And I'm wondering, how did I solve that? Well, let's see what we did here. SpongeBob free falls towards Goosey. Let's find those boards actually now. Save me! So here's where we are. He leaps out of the rocket ship and he free falls. And now I have him pulling out a telescope. So this is the part of the storytelling we're talking about. And now SpongeBob pulls out a telescope to see a pirate ship. So I fulfilled that part of the story. The next story point is Mr. Krabs is tied up. Well, actually, I fulfilled this part. He pulls out a telescope and sees a pirate ship. Can I tell that part of the story in this shot? Can I show the pirate ship in this shot? I'm returning your head. No, you're right. Therefore, what do I do on my list? I have to identify the next story point, which is we see a pirate ship. And so it makes sense that we're looking at the pirate ship through the telescope, right? That's the deductive math we're doing. I should say the deductive story math we're doing. Therefore, for the cutting guideline, remember, we only cut when we can no longer tell the story in our current shot. Can I tell this next story point of seeing a pirate ship and then Mr. Krabs being tied up on the plank and then even seeing Plankton in that shot? Can I tell any of that story in this shot? I can't. Therefore, I need to cut, right? And that cut is then becoming what? Someone tell me, what does this cut do? What does it have?
It's purposeful and it drives the story forward.
Yes, the cut is meaningful. It has purpose. It's there for a reason because we're going to tell a story point that we can't tell in this shot. So I cut to, oh, through the old telescope shot. And I added anime lines and I started off my shot with a blurry shot, meaning he pulled the telescope out, but he didn't focus the telescope. So I'm just trying to create some lens optics that make it look interesting. So he focuses the telescope to first see what? A pirate ship. And then the other part is because SpongeBob is in a free fall, I can't just have the pirate ship sitting there. I have to, on each frame, move it closer to camera to continue that sense of him falling down towards Earth. So it gets a little bit bigger in this shot. And so the question is, how many panels do I need to fulfill that story point of seeing the pirate ship? Well, I've got one, blurry one, now clear. And we have enough drawings here to what? Tell that it is a pirate ship, right? And how did I do that? I did what you guys learned last week. I did a 2-frame anime cycle of these speed lines, which we learned last or 2 weeks ago, right? On the walking part. I think it was last week also. So we have that, and then I have the background getting larger on each shot to imply it's getting closer. I have it going from blurry in 1 frame, 2 frames to clear. So I feel like these are enough drawings to clarify that story point of it being a pirate ship. But now we have the next story point. Mr. Krabs is tied up and walking the plank at sword point. The pirate holding his sword is Plankton. So, can I tell that story point in my current shot? Anybody have any ideas if I can tell that story point in this current shot? Maria, go ahead.
You can do a zoom in.
Exactly. I'm just doing a cheat. I'm pretending his telescope has got telescopic powers. It's going to zoom in. So watch. Zoom. And as I zoom in, we're focusing on this story point of Mr. Krabs walking out on the plank. And I used as a foreground element this sail to block the view of who's pointing the sword so I can do a reveal of Plankton. So Mr. Plankton is what Mr. Plankton. Mr. Krabs is walking out on the plank. I'm pushing the background in each time. I do a 2-frame cycle on the waves of the water. So you can see a squiggly line here, these lines, and then there is a different shape. So I give a sense that the boat is moving forward. And as we're moving in, I didn't reveal Plankton yet. Let's see what I did. I have the reflection of Mr. Krabs on his telescope, and I have SpongeBob now pulling the ripcord. So I think I chose to reveal Plankton afterwards. And that was a story choice that I made. So let's read the script. Let's take a look at the script pages again. The pirate holding his sword is Plankton. So I, for some reason, and we have to do it, we're going to go forward and find out. I chose to reveal Plankton later. I wanted to save it as a reveal. And so I changed the order of events here. It didn't break the storytelling. He pulls the ripcord of his backpack parachute. A motorcycle pops out. SpongeBob hops on the motorcycle in mid-free fall and peels out towards the pirate ship. Let's figure out how to tell that story point. So I wanted to have a reaction of SpongeBob seeing this. And I told myself this is not in the script, but can I tell that story point in this shot? Now that actually, let me back up. Now that I've identified the next story point, which is I've revealed Mr. Krabs, I chose to delay showing Plankton. So I need to see a reaction of SpongeBob. That's me identifying the next story point. Now I know what the next story point is. SpongeBob reacts. Can I tell that story point in this shot? I cannot. I need to cut to a new shot, which is showing SpongeBob. Now the question is, what does that new shot look like? Is it a wide shot? Is it a close-up? Well, if the story point is that I want to see him reacting, I need to be close enough on his face to be able to tell that story point. And therefore, that's helping me understand how near I need to be to SpongeBob. I already had this shot before, which is this one of him falling. But when I look at this drawing, I feel like I'm not looking at his face directly enough. So I think I wanted to bring the camera around a little bit more towards the front of the barrel of the spyglass so I can more clearly see his reaction. So that's helping me understand where I need to put the camera. And that is part 2 of our steps of boarding. So I went to a reverse of SpongeBob, boom. And in this case, now I can still sell the idea of Mr. Krabs on the plank, which is really a nice, helpful thing. And I can see SpongeBob's look of determination more clearly in this angle than I would have been if it was in this angle. So by moving the camera in more, this shot feels more noticeably different than this one, right? You guys can tell this shot versus this shot. And if had I used this shot, it would have felt repetitive. This shot is more meaningful because now we're closer to seeing his face. So now I can have a look of determination, and I can set up the ripcord. So this is the chess move, but it's an immediate chess move. So for example, in this shot, I didn't set up the red ripcord on his backpack, which I should have. In this shot, I move the camera around to the front so that I can continue telling Mr. Krabs' story in the spyglass reflection, which was a big bonus. I can show him putting his backpack, I can show him putting the spyglass away in his backpack, revealing the ripcord, and he grabs it and he pulls it. Now, the next story point is he pulls the ripcord, and again, this is a dream. In fact, you can see up here it says SpongeBob's dream. This is 2023. A motorcycle pops out. SpongeBob hops on it in mid-free fall and peels out towards the pirate ship. So he's got to pull the ripcord here. I did it on a close-up. The question is, can I tell this next part of the story in this shot? The idea that rather than a parachute coming out of his backpack. I have a motorcycle coming out of this shot. Can I show that happening in this shot? What do you think, Valerie?
Maybe if you zoom out so you could see the motorcycle clearly come out.
I like that. That's good. So let's see how I solve that. Because you're right. I can't show the totality of a motorcycle coming out of his backpack in a close up. There's no way. Now the question is, and I can't remember right now. I don't remember if I zoomed out or if I cut wide. I'm gonna take a peek down below here and see how I did it. Okay, so I haven't pulled a ripcord. Okay, this is what I did. I realized that I could begin telling part of that story in this shot. So remember the cutting guideline that I follow, which is you only cut when you can no longer tell the story in your current shot. So I decided, you know what? I can begin telling part of that story of the backpack opening up and showing the motorcycle popping out in this shot. Because look, there's room. So I have a wheel open up here and then something else come out. But then I realized, nah, I can't do any more. So I went to a shot of the sky and I had the motorcycle fly past camera and settle. And the reason why I did this is I was thinking back to shots of movies where I see people like a parachuter jumping out of a plane, and they pull the ripcord, and they always cut to that shot of looking in the sky, and the parachute flies past camera and fills with air. You guys familiar with that shot? That's why I did this shot. So Valerie, what you said is not wrong. I just chose to tell it differently. But the way you described it would work perfectly well. And you could just, as he pulls it, you could zoom out really wide and have that action happen. So your answer is actually correct. So I had the motorcycle here, and then I popped this wider shot. And then I thought, okay, how am I going to get him onto this motorcycle? Because right now, it doesn't tell you in the script pages at all how he does it. It says SpongeBob hops on in mid free fall and peels out towards the pirate ship. But I was really playing this like it was a parachute. And parachutes have what? They have ropes connected to the parachute. So I cut to a wide shot of the motorcycle here. And I thought, okay, if this is what he's going to do, I thought, what if he starts swinging back and forth? So he does it. He puts his legs up in the air like this and swings back and then forward and flies up and around and lands on the bike. And I thought to be dramatic, I cut from this wide shot and I cut down, even though he lands on it here, I cut to a close up to finish the action because it felt heroic. So that's how I decided to tell the story. And the reason why I didn't continue telling it all in this close up is that we have to get to that next story point, which is he peels out towards the pirate ship. And I could certainly tell that story point in this shot. But in my mind, I'm thinking it needs to feel heroic. It needs to feel like James Bond. It needs to feel like Keanu Reeves in the John Wick's movies, like heroic, like a badass. And can you tell badass from a wide shot like this? My feeling was, no, you really can't express badass in a wide shot. I could finish that story point of him revving up the engine and going downwards in the shot, but I felt that getting to this part here where he looks really heroic and stands up, and you know, motorcycles have this little pedal you have to kick to start the engine. I felt like I couldn't tell that story point very well in this shot. You could certainly, I would say, you could still have the sound effect of the motorcycle revving. You could see him standing up and shifting down and having that sound of the engines firing up with sound effects. But I felt by going to this close up, it would be much more heroic. So he stands up and then shoves down the pedal, and we hear all that smoke coming out the back. And then he revs the engine like this a few times, vroom, vroom, vroom. And now we have to have him going down towards the pirate ship. SpongeBob hops in mid free fall, peels out towards the pirate ship. Exterior Plankton ship. Plankton, wearing a wooden robot stilts and robot arms, has Mr. Krabs tied up and walking the plank at cutlass point. Nearby is a closed pirate chest. Have mercy, Captain Plankton. If you let me go, I'll give you 5% off your next purchase. Well, maybe 4%. Plankton says, save your discount, Krabs. I finally have what I want, what I always wanted, which is the Plankton kicks open the pirate chest, revealing a glass bottle with a rolled up piece of paper inside. The secret Krabby Patty recipe is written on it. So that's every SpongeBob, right? He wants the secret Krabby Patty thing. So I have to go from SpongeBob on the motorcycle zooming down to the pirate ship, and then cutting to this moment with Plankton wearing a robot stilt thing. So I need to go from him on the motorcycle to getting to the boat. How did I tell that story point? Well, he revs the engine up, zooms back. So zooming back part is what you call an anticipation, and then he zooms off. Now, the next thing is, can I show him zooming off towards the ship? And the question is, do I cut or can I have the camera whip after him? And I chose to have the camera whip after him in this shot to follow that trail of smoke. And as that happens, we're flying on with him after the ship. And it's a heroic, cool move, I think, to show SpongeBob going after his target. So he flies up. Vroom, 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 vroom. And in this shot, this is exactly what I taught you guys a few weeks ago or last week. 2-frame anime cycle of these speed lines. I took the background and the boat, and on every frame, I made it a little bit bigger. Just look at the boat right now. Don't look at SpongeBob. The boat gets bigger, as does the background. What did I do with SpongeBob? I did a 2-frame cycle on the smoke coming out of the exhaust. So look at the shape of this smoke and look at the shape of that smoke. It's a little more narrow. And then back to the big one and back to the narrow one. And the only other small thing I did was I had SpongeBob go up and down in the shot like that. And I think I made him a little bit smaller in the shot to feel like he's gaining away from camera. So I have him slightly gaining away from camera and the background coming close to us. So it should feel very dynamic and very badass. So now the next shot is, so now that I fulfilled this part of him peeling out towards the pirate ship, I fulfilled that story point. We go back to our script pages. Exterior Plankton ship day. Plankton, wearing a wooden robot stilt and robot arms, has Mr. Krabs tied up and walking the plank at Cutlass Point. Nearby is a closed pirate chest. So this is the point of this idea is, do I want to have a pirate chest somewhere else? I chose to get rid of that idea, and I chose to have the actual Krabby Patty formula in the bottle, but I put it on on his Plankton's boat just to make it simpler. And Krabs is saying, "Have mercy, Captain Plankton. If you let me go, I'll give you 5% off your next purchase." Well, maybe 4%. So this is how I chose to reveal Plankton. We see him here. "Have mercy, Captain Plankton." And as he says that, we see Plankton on his little robot ship. I guess it's sort of like Karen, his wife, his robot wife, right? But you guys watch SpongeBob, right? You've seen it. She's like this computer monitor with robot feet. So that's what it looks like. And he turns because he's at the end of the plank. "You let me go." And by the way, I should mention this too. I was going to talk about this later today, but let's just cover some of this now. How many poses do you need for your dialogue? How much physical action do I have to create? So this particular line, "Have mercy, Captain Plankton." "Have mercy, Captain Plankton." I did 3 panels because I felt it would take that much time. As I say it to myself, "Have mercy, Captain Plankton," I feel like those drawings are enough to cover that movement. And then the next drawing reveals Plankton. He says, "If you let me go, I'll give you 5% off your next purchase. If you let me go, I'll give you 5% off your next purchase." And I cut to a close-up on that line because I had a joke where the knife oh, I didn't have a joke here. I'll let you go. I'll give you 5% off your next purchase. Well, maybe 4%. Because Mr. Krabs, as you guys know, is incredibly cheap. And even if he's going to be killed, he's still incredibly cheap, which makes him a very funny character. And then Plankton walks out on the boat, on the actual Cutlass Point, and he says, "Save your discounts, Krabs. I have what I've always wanted." And so this is what I did. There's a story point here. "Save your discounts, Krabs. I finally have what I've always wanted." Plankton kicks open the pirate chest, revealing a glass bottle with a rolled up piece of paper inside. The secret recipe is written on it. So this is the main story point. We're revealing that Plankton has finally got what he's always wanted, which is what? The Krabby Patty. Yes, the Krabby Patty formula. That's like a tongue twister. Say it 10 times. I dare you. So if that's the story point, and I have to show a pirate chest, but I have to show Plankton, I was thinking to myself, maybe there's an easier way of telling the story point that's a little simpler and cleaner. Because I thought, how big is the pirate chest? does that mean that Plankton jumps off his little boat like this thing right here? So, for example, if Plankton is on this little boat thing, where is the pirate chest in relation to him? And I was thinking logistically, if he's on this mechanized robot, that means the pirate chest, if it's a regular full size pirate chest, it would be about as big as his whole ship. That means that maybe it's on the deck. I just thought logistically it's a pain in the ass. And that this is an example where I think the writer may have visualized something, but they were not very clear about it. Or the writers just thought pirate chest and they threw that in there and it was up to the storyboard artists to figure out. And I will definitely say for SpongeBob, I think they really expected to figure things out. As a side note, several years ago, the people that were running it chose to stop making it a board driven show and they went to scripts. And I think what I heard, at least I heard through the grapevine, is that it's hard to find board artists who can really write and be idea people that write jokes and dialogue. And so they found by scripting it, it might be a little easier. So I think if you guys want to make yourselves really valuable in your careers, become an idea person that can write scenes, meaning dialogue and ideas, as opposed to just illustrating them. So, what did I do here? He says, well, maybe 4%. Save your discounts, crabs. I finally have what I've always wanted. So I thought this would be an easier way of revealing the bottle. This is how I chose to stage it. I thought that from a character to character interaction standpoint, it would be much more interesting and dramatic to have Plankton walk out on the Cutlass and talk to him face to face. It's much more engaging when the villain walks up to you and like gets in your face. And so I felt this would be a better solution than keep him far away. And then I thought if I cut to a reverse, what if I use the sail of his miniature boat, which I've set up in this shot right here? I have his miniature sail here that behind the sail, the Krabby Patty formula is in the bottle already right here, and that he will use this rope to pull it down. So I thought that's how I'm going to reveal the bottle. So on this shot, I finally have what I've always wanted. And the reason why I did this is that he would have the bottle right behind him in this shot. So he anticipates by jumping down and leaps in the air off the boat. He's got the rope, and as he hits the ground, the rope is taut right here. It gets pulled very taut, and it causes the sails to raise up, revealing the bottle on the boat. It's right in front of the other mast, and then the camera pushes in and whips sideways to show secret recipe. And that's how I decided to tell that story point, rather than having him go somewhere else and get a little pirate chest. Because the thing is, the pirate chest would have to be, it couldn't be plankton size. It had to be big because the recipe is human size, right? Because in that world, crabs is human size versus plankton, if you think about it. So I need to make the recipe large. And that's how I told that story point.